All right, Bobby lads,
What's going on?
how are you doing, pal?
I'm doing well. How's it going over there in LA?
I'm in Albuquerque at the moment.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're in Albuquerque. I forgot.
Yeah, what's COVID like in New York? I mean, I don't read the news and that, but I've heard from friends that it's pretty fucking full on.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. Luckily, nobody I know has gotten it. But it's just like we're not really leaving the house much. Everybody's wearing masks. At least responsible people are.
Yeah.
I mean it hit hard here.
Yeah, I heard. I mean, I heard about LA too, but Albuquerque's always kind of behind the pace.
Yeah.
I haven't actually noticed much of a difference, to be honest. Like, apart from like breweries and that being closed and the restaurants,
Yeah.
other than that, life just been normal.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, hopefully it stays that way. It's the population density that gets you. It's just so dense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's only I don't even know actually, but only probably a million people here, maybe more. But
Yeah.
nothing compared to like you guys in LA. But what are you drinking today, lads? I've gone for this.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Lefe?
My fiance lived in Belgium. How do you say it? Lefe? Leffe.
Lefa, so we were both wrong.
Yeah, we were both
Well,
off on that.
it's actually really nice. It's 6.6%, decent. What are you drinking?
I've got my home brewed. This is a Bavarian Helles here.
Oh, nice. I was actually going to say, the first time you and I met, you were kind enough to invite me around and cook. And this was obviously during my meat phase. But I remember you had some like really cool homemade beers and stuff. Are you still kind of doing that? Well, you obviously are.
Oh yeah. I've got 2 taps going right now, but I just bought 2 more, so I'm gonna have 4 taps here in my apartment. And yeah, I try to keep those rotating all the time.
I'm gonna have to get involved with that. I don't know. It's a lot of work I'm hearing, but it's definitely worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of work, but I enjoy it. I mean, it takes me about a 6-hour day to brew a batch, and that gives me 5 gallons, which is like 2.5 cases of beer.
So two days worth then.
Yeah, 2 days. Yeah, there you go.
What we cooking today, lad?
All right, so we decided to go with something simple, something that's like snacky. But one of my favorite recipes, it's a go-to. I always go back to it when I want something quick and delicious. So it's Catalan tomato bread. Have you ever been to Spain?
Yeah, a few times. I mean, it's like an hour and a half on a flight from England.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so in Barcelona, they eat this a lot. It's ubiquitous in all the restaurants. It's a constant appetizer. You'll see guys just like cranking these out. And a lot of times they won't even have a guy making it. They'll just bring you all the ingredients to your table and you pass them around and make it yourself. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Well, like all simple recipes, when you only have a few ingredients, you really have to get like quality ones because there's no hiding them. So, I've got a nice baguette here. I got this from Balthasar Bakery here in New York. So you want a nice crusty bread, cut in half.
Gotcha. I better cut mine in half.
And then just a clove of fresh garlic, whole clove.
Okay.
Any good extra virgin olive oil.
Nice.
And a nice ripe tomato. That's all. That's the whole thing. Well, and some salt. Any salt will do. But
when I asked Bobby what we were making today, and he told me, he sent me a picture of molten sea salt cake. And my reply was, what the fuck are they? Never heard of them. And in Albuquerque, this is the 4th store I went to. Finally had them.
It took 4 stores. Well, that's from your neck of the woods. It's an English salt.
Didn't even know, mate. Didn't even know. I used to, not now to use that Himalayan salt, but for 30 years, I just used that like $1 little salt that you just...
Yeah.
Now I understood the difference is huge.
You can use whatever salt you have for this recipe. I just find that this flaky salt, this flaky sea salt that you get in the Malden, it gives like this crunchiness and texture to the dish that's really nice. So if you're gonna do it, it's really cool to have around. I actually have the smoked version of Malden, which is cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
It does say on the box for professional cooks. So
there you go.
I'm out of my element, but that's why you're here. So what's the first step, man?
All right, so we're gonna pop our bread in the oven, just like this, 400-degree oven. Maybe takes 5 minutes to toast it up. So I'm gonna pop mine in now.
Straight in, nothing else on it?
Nope. Just the dry bread for now. And we'll see how that all works out in the end. Yeah, what was I going to say?
As that's in there for 5 minutes, what are the next steps?
Next steps, when it comes out, we are literally just going to rub it with fresh garlic, like the clove itself we'll cut open, and we'll use the cut side. When it comes out of the oven, the bread is like a cheese grater, you know, because it's real like toasty. So when you rub the fresh garlic on, it kind of grades the garlic onto the top. Then you cut your tomato in half, you take the cut end, you rub that on top, it grades the tomato on, finish with the olive oil and a little bit of salt, and you've got like the best garlicky tomato bread. So easy.
That's my heaven right there, mate. Jesus. So for those, I mean, obviously I've known you for what? Well, I've only met you once, but obviously I see what you do and your sister, and now I'm working with her, Kaylee. Just tell us a little bit about what you do briefly, because obviously you've been a cook most of your life, right? How'd you get into that? Kind of what's the pros and cons?
Okay, so, well, my dad owned restaurants when I was growing up, since I was born. So I grew up in kitchens cooking for him. Eventually, you know, when I needed money, high school, I got my first job. It was in a kitchen. I continued doing that through college, graduate school, all that stuff. It always paid the bills, you know. I went to school for creative writing, which does not pay the bills. But I was continuing to do that, you know, and I traveled all over the world. I always had a wanderlust. I wanted to live different places, you know, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston. I lived in Milan and Florence. And I always cooked and I always wrote, but cooking was always where the money came from. So then I moved to New York, and I had a lot of experience at that point. So if you have experience as a cook and you come to New York, you're kind of set. Like when people see that you've worked a lot of places, everybody wants you to work for them. You're not going to make a lot of money just working as a line cook, but you can get jobs at the best restaurants in the world. So I really moved up and, you know, worked at several different Michelin-starred restaurants. I became the pastaio, the head pasta chef at a Michelin-starred restaurant that's like right down the street from where I am now. And that's what I was doing when my sister Autumn decided she wanted to write a cookbook. Now, if you guys don't know who Autumn is, quick explanation. My sister is a trainer. She's a very famous trainer, and she came up with like a nutrition system that a lot of people love. And the nutrition system is called Ultimate Portion Fix. It's all about controlling your portions in a simple way. Yeah. So she wanted to write a cookbook for that. And she asked me for my help because she doesn't really cook much. So I helped her. We came up with a lot of recipes. This first cookbook came out. People went crazy for it. It sold like 500,000 copies. So then the company that she worked for called BeachBody, she still works for, BeachBody, they wanted to do a second cookbook, and they contacted me and they hired me to do the recipes for it. I was still working here in New York, but I was like, yeah, I'll do the recipes. We got halfway through it, and then they called me up and they were like, we got to put everything on hold. We just stop all your work. And I was like, what? We're like halfway through this. It's going well. I thought, you know, the project was canceled. And then the CEO of BeachBody called me up and he said, hey, you want to move out to LA and host a cooking show with your sister? I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So
why not, right? Why not?
Yeah, why not? So I was in LA for 3 years doing the cooking show, and we really got it nailed down to where it's just, you know, it's a science. Like we can knock everything out so easily now. At first there was a lot of learning because none of us had done a cooking show. But we got it nailed down so well that my fiance got offered a good job back here in New York, and she wanted to take it. And I was like, well, we can move back to New York. You can take the job that you want. I'll continue to develop the recipes at home. And then when we have to shoot, I'll just fly to LA and do the shoots. And that's how we've been doing it now.
Oh, wow. Fair enough. Where did you meet Charlie?
We met over Tinder, actually, here in New York. We met over Tinder.
What a great app. Tinder and Bumble, right? That's kind of the modern way to meet people right now.
Yeah, who needs to sit around in a bar and like try and pick someone out of a room you're going to try and talk to?
Yeah, I don't have the confidence to go up to a girl in a bar. Absolutely not. I'm not doing horrible. That. It makes it a lot easier. But well, that's cool. I mean, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Tinder does work. I've got a few mates actually married they've met their partners on Tinder or Bumble. So
that's how everybody's meeting these days. Yeah,
well,
I asked her out for a drink, and she was like, maybe just coffee.
so she was unsure, but then she met you out. She was like, all right, fair play.
She was like, yeah. No, we had coffee, and it was really nice. And she was talking to me about how she lived in Belgium. And we left the coffee shop. I was still like, I don't know if this girl likes me or not, so maybe I'll just kind of let her go home. But I said, oh, let me give it a shot. I said, I have this Belgian beer, this Belgian Lambic I brewed 2 years ago. I only have one bottle left. It's been aging a long time. Would you like to try it? She goes, yeah. And then she came back to my apartment, and yeah, the rest is history from there.
That's pretty smooth, Bobby. Pretty smooth. What's it like working in a restaurant in New York for I mean, because when obviously I watch the cooking shows and that, I've always been fascinated by them, especially as a kid. I'd watch hours and hours. We had a show in England called Ready Steady Cook. It's like almost like MasterChef a little bit, but not as good. It was just like normal people trying to cook favorite meals, and they get voted. But then when I've looked at documentaries and stuff, and I've listened to chefs, it's pretty full on, right? Like 12, 13-hour days or even more.
Yeah, I mean, it can be depending on what your situation is. Definitely when you get to like sous chef position, your sous chef, they put you on salary, a very low salary, and then they expect you to just, your whole life is in the restaurant. When you're line cook, sometimes it can be 12 hours days, 10-hour days. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll get an 8-hour day. But they work you to death, and it pays hardly anything, especially in a big city that's expensive. You're struggling to get by. You're in this 100-degree kitchen all day long. You're making, I think my first job in New York, I made $11 an hour. And I was working probably 11-hour shifts. 5 days a week. I did get 2 days off, which was nice, but $11 an hour, I could barely pay rent. And everybody's just trying to get to that head chef job, but there aren't really enough head chef jobs to go around for every line cook. So, it's a gamble. It's definitely a gamble, but it's also something that you can do anywhere in the world. And if you know what you're doing, people will hire you. You can travel, and it's a real meritocracy. I'm going to check my bread real quick.
I better check mine, man. Smells good, whatever bread this is. Are you taking yours out? Mine's pretty
I'm pulling mine.
So do you get to a point where you think it's either now or never, or you just think, fuck it, I'm going to move on? Or when was that point for you where you knew kind of your next step or your next stage?
Honestly, I had been cooking so long, like I said, since I was a kid, that I was very knowledgeable about, pretty much every kind of cuisine. And I was holding myself back because I didn't want to fully commit to cooking, because I still wanted to be a fiction writer. So for the longest time, I wouldn't take a sous chef job because I didn't want them keeping me in there 13 hours a day. I wouldn't move up because I wanted to just be a line cook with no responsibilities, so I would have more time to write. I think, eventually I got to the point where I was like mid-30s, and I was like, I love writing, but I'm just seeing the way that the industry is going and how little money there is for someone who wants to write the kind of writing that I do. And I was like, I'm going to have to double down on this chef thing and actually make it work. And that's when I started to accept promotions and kind of move into really high-end restaurants. And it turned around very fast. At that point, it took me, I went from being a line cook to being like the Postillo at a Michelin-starred restaurant within a year, just because I started actually.
Oh wow! That was really
focusing on it. So yeah, it went well for me, but it is tough. It's a tough gig.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Fair play. What's the next step now, Bobby?
All right, so it's cooled a little bit so we can handle it. You want to take your garlic clove and just slice it in half. So now you got the cut side, the open side where the juices are. You're just going to take that, put it on your bread, and just rub it all around.
So this is the thing, obviously, I just jumped into this with Kaylee, and when she came to me with the idea of it, I'm not a cook. Like, I enjoy cooking, but as we've kind of gone along and obviously worked on the cookbook, stuff like this has been fascinating to me, because I wish I was taught this as a kid. You know what I mean? Like even in school, we had cooking classes, but they were never like this. It was bake a cake and make it look fancy. There was no like go-to kind of cooking tips like this. That's the first time, like I said, I've heard it. I'm 32. I've just learned the fucking salt flakes. Like, that's not all right. I should have been taught that. And I asked my mum about it, and she said, just kind of the culture, you know, you kind of go with the norm. But, oh, no, yeah. I just kind of hope, I don't know if it's still in the schools in America. I don't know, but I feel like it's a really good thing to have.
Oh, yeah, it's a great skill to have. I mean, there's not a lot of cooking in schools, although it is getting more and more popular these days. There wasn't any cooking classes when I was growing up. But they are getting more popular. People see that it's a profession that can really pay off, especially if you get an early start. Okay, so we cut our tomato in half, same way.
What type of tomato? Tomato.
Tomato.
I mean, I got this little big guy.
Yeah, that's
the fanciest looking tomato at the store.
Yeah, I was really looking for a great like heirloom tomato, something beautiful. Like I was saying, when you have a few ingredients, you always want the best. And I went to the store, and they pretty much did not have the best today. So I've got this guy. It's not amazing, but it was the best I could find.
I got to the checkout for this one tomato. She's like $3. I'm like, for fuck's sake. I was like, shit, whatever. It's for the tomato bread, so I'll do it.
Yeah, well, I'll get the good tomato.
I'll get the good one.
So we're going to rub our bread the same way we did with our garlic. To get it all over there. One tip I have for tomatoes, don't ever refrigerate them. Never put them in the fridge. It makes them mushy, and it actually kills the flavor.
Why are we not taught that as kids? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I have a theory. Like in America, most people don't really like raw tomatoes. But I think my theory is that's because they've been eating refrigerated tomatoes their whole life, and they taste like garbage.
Go soft and gooey and shit.
Yeah, but if you get a good tomato that's never hit the fridge, and you don't ever put it in the fridge, it's a whole different world.
Oh, you're proper rubbing it. So we're just like literally absolutely coating it.
Get the tomato all over there.
So does it go a little bit soggy? What are we looking for?
Yeah, you want it to get a little bit soft. So when you bite into it, you know, you've got the crispy outside and a little bit soft in the middle.
It smells so good already. What are your typical eating habits, Bobby? Obviously, being a chef and cooking all the time, and do you just kind of pick up food, or do you have like set meals that you do? I mean, what's kind of the? Because I always imagine it must be. I think not being a chef, it's like you get to cook amazing food every day. So do you get just to keep eating the amazing food, or do you have to actually separate it?
You know, I have to develop so many recipes that I can't possibly eat all the food, which is said, I try to give a lot of it away. I live in an apartment building, and I'll literally send out to the text chain of everybody that lives in the building, like, hey, I've got some of this. Anybody want it? You know, so I give a lot away, but
I'll be the first one there, mate. Fuck it. I wish I had someone like you in my apartment complex.
Yeah, right. I guess that's a pretty nice perk of this apartment. The landlord should give me a discount for that.
You should.
But you know, then I'm always trying to learn new things. You know, I'm reading books and I'm seeing things in restaurants that I like and I want to try it out on my own. And you know, I'm just going with whatever I'm feeling, looking at ingredients that are in season in the store. I make a lot of pasta. I love pasta, homemade pasta. So I'm always trying to come up with new little inventions there, whether it's sauces or shapes or just learning new things all the time.
You do kill me a little bit because obviously I follow you on Instagram, and some of the fucking food that you put, I think it was for your Fixate $5 donation charity menu you did, and I think was it the brisket that you posted?
Yeah.
My mouth watered, man. Well, I want that. And then you just posted like a scallops, and like my absolute ultimate favorite.
I love scallops. People have such a hard time like with just searing a scallop. It's one of those dishes that everybody's afraid of, but it's not hard once you get the hang of it. The reason I did that scallop dish is because my sister, Autumn, practically set her house on fire the other day trying to sear scallops. she's asking me how to do it through text message, so I can't see anything that she's doing. So I told her, get your pan very hot, and then she got it way too hot. She put the scallop in the pan, it splattered, the oil hit the flame, and then everything went up in flames.
Oh, shit. Yeah, it's definitely your fault, Bobby. Bad instructions.
Yeah, I almost killed
Bad
it.
instructions.
That's why I was like, all right, we're going to do a scallop recipe for the cooking show so I can show you in real time. And yeah, that's what I posted that for. All right, so we got some decent olive oil here, extra virgin olive oil.
Yep.
Just liberally drizzle that on your bread.
Like full-on coat or just a little drizzle?
I do like a medium amount, I'd say.
All right.
No,
I do love oil, so it's going on. I'm doing a healthy portion.
Yeah, a healthy portion. I like that. In Italian, we say quanto basta. That means the amount that is enough.
All right, done. I'm not going to try and even repeat that word, mate.
In Italian recipes, you'll actually see an ingredient, and next to it, it'll just say QB, and that's just quanto basta.
Love it. Good to know. I guess I better open this salt bag, right?
There you go. Yep.
What do you think the next step is for you, Bobby, in terms of, have you always kind of envisioned your own restaurant? I mean, do you have any kind of like thoughts for the future, or are you just kind of going with it at the moment?
You know, I mean, the cooking show is doing really well. It takes off more and more every day. We did a second cookbook recently that sold very well. So right
I'm
now,
going to put a link to that below for people who haven't seen it yet.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so right now I'm focusing on that. They're keeping me really busy. Like this year, we've been doing it 4 years now. This year, they actually doubled the amount of recipes they wanted me to do. So I've been really, really busy with that. And as long as it's going well, I'm going to keep doing it. You know, maybe someday start a restaurant. You know, I had a real heartbreaker. I did start a restaurant in LA probably a year and a half ago, and it was in the fire zone, and the fires broke out, and it destroyed a year of my life's work.
That's a shame.
Yeah, so that was a tough pill to swallow, and it's going to take me a minute to kind of get.
I guess the bright side is you know now what the prep is going to be for your next restaurant. It probably cut the time in half.
Right. It was an amazing learning experience. I will say that. It was a heartbreak when I lost it, but yeah, it's definitely. You can't learn how to open a restaurant without opening a restaurant. No one's going to teach you that.
And it takes a lot of balls, mate. I mean, you know, you hear the stories about, was it 1 in 3 or some statistic that. So yeah, it's one of those things. If you know you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And yeah, I mean, you definitely. I think you know that there's going to be a restaurant at some point. So that would be exciting. Do you think if you're going to stay in New York, Bobby, or do you think you'll move around again, or do you have a plan for that?
You know, I never say never. I feel like I'm going to stay in New York for at least a while. I definitely have gotten to a point in my life where I feel like this is home. But I never say never. You know, I'm an Italian citizen. I always think about, maybe going back and living in Italy again, or because that makes me an EU citizen, you know, maybe try living in another European country. But for the moment, I'm definitely focused on staying in New York.
Nice.
Should we try this bread?
Yeah, sorry, do you sprinkle the salt on?
I sprinkled salt, yeah. So just,
completely missed that, mate. Again, healthy portion, depending on how much salt you like. I'm a massive salt fan, so.
Yeah, everybody has different salt tolerance. It's crazy. So you got to go with your gut on that. You know, it's funny. I always think it's ridiculous when you go to one of these fancy restaurants and they tell you that the food has been perfectly salted by the chef. And I'll tell you for 2 things. One, the chef did not salt your food. A line cook salted your food. And he probably, if you're lucky, he tasted 1 out of every 10 dishes because he's moving so fast. So your food has not necessarily been perfectly salted, even if you're in a Michelin-starred restaurant. Secondly, everybody has different salt tolerance. So even if the chef salted your food, he might have a different tolerance than you. So put some salt on the table is all I'm saying. You know, it's
put it on. I've got to give it a go then, right? I'm going to go straight in here.
All right.
for someone who can eat as many carbs as they want and not have to think about the negatives, I'm just lucky with that genetically.
Yeah.
This is the go-to.
I mean, there is, like, we've been talking this whole time, so we've been going super slow, but literally the bread was in the oven maybe 4 minutes. You pull it out, you cut a garlic clove in half, rub, cut tomato in half, rub, drizzle, salt, and you're done. And you have this dish that seems so simple, but has so much complexity to it. And it's like
so flavorful. You can taste literally, like you said, once you get if you spend money and, you know, get the proper ingredients, you can taste every single one. The only thing I'm going to say is it's dangerous because I could eat this honestly constantly, but I definitely would give that a 10 out of 10. That for me is, again, like we're spending time, especially in Spain and Belgium and Italy. We used to have this all the time, like when we would go there, and these quick, like fresh bakeries, and this was a big one. And when you mentioned it to me a couple of days ago, I was like, shit, I haven't had that since I think about 18, 19 years old. So I'm already getting memories that are coming back, which is brilliant.
You know, this little dish actually got my wallet stolen one time.
Really?
I was in Spain and I was eating outside on the sidewalk at a table, and they served me tomato bread, and I bit into it, and it was just fantastic, and I was loving it, and I was like telling my girlfriend at the time, "Oh, come here, try this. This is so good." And I had my wallet in my hand for some reason, and I set it down on the table and was not paying attention to it. And this little kid came over, and he put a piece of paper in my face that it was like a fake petition, and he was like, "Will you sign?" And it was all in Spanish, and I said, "Oh, I can't read Spanish." And he said, "Okay," and he walked away. He had reached under the paper and pocketed my wallet, and he just disappeared.
All right, what a smart kid.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Well, Bobby, thanks for coming on, Matt. I really appreciate that. I've now got a new go-to munchies meal, so appreciate it, bud.
Thanks for having me, man. It was